My name is Tessa Morgan, and for most of my life I've felt like the extra piece in a family puzzle where everyone else fit perfectly together. I was never the pretty one, never the favorite, never the one who got away with things. That title belonged to my younger sister, Ashley. If I so much as forgot to do the dishes growing up, I was met with a cold glare and silence that could freeze a furnace. But Ashley? She once crashed Dad's old Camry into the neighbor's fence while high, and my mom hugged her, said it was stress from school, and made me pay for half the repairs. I was 15. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. Now I'm 29 and somehow things haven't changed much. Except Dad's been gone 6 years, and the weight of surviving in this family is mine alone. I work double shifts at Harlan's Diner off I-45 in Houston, and I take night classes in accounting at the community college. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture and a flickering hallway light I never quite get around to fixing. I don't complain, not out loud at least. But inside, I burn a little every time Ashley posts a new Instagram story from a spa or beach house paid for by our mother's blind, endless devotion. I remember once when I was 7, I brought home a certificate for perfect attendance and stuck it on the fridge. My mom peeled it off and replaced it with a crooked finger painting Ashley did of a house on fire. The irony only hits me now. On the night everything changed, it had rained for hours. The parking lot of the gas station shimmered with puddles reflecting the dull yellow of the overhead lights. I was coming home from a closing shift, hands sore from carrying trays and feet swollen inside my cracked sneakers. I went inside to grab some cheap ramen and a bottle of Sprite. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe I just wanted to feel like something good could happen for once. But I grabbed a $10 scratch-off from the dusty stack behind the counter and tucked it into my hoodie. I scratched it in the car under the weak glow of the overhead light. The coin in my hand trembled by the third number. I stared at the row of matching digits. $2.5 million. $2.5 million. I screamed. Not loud, not enough to draw attention. Just this kind of broken, disbelieving noise that caught in my throat and turned into a laugh that made me cry. I called out, "Oh my God," over and over again, gripping the steering wheel like it might all vanish if I didn't hold on to something. It felt like the universe had finally seen me. Not Ashley. Not Mom. Me. I didn't sleep that night. I made a cup of tea I didn't drink, sat on the floor, and Googled what to do next. I learned I had to sign the ticket and head to the Texas Lottery Commission in Austin to claim it. They'd issue a check, verify everything. I imagined my bills evaporating, my student debt gone, maybe even a trip to Italy. Somewhere I'd only dreamed of going, somewhere I wasn't Tessa the afterthought. The next morning, against every instinct, I drove to my mom's house. I think a part of me just wanted to be seen. To be congratulated, maybe even loved. Her house was the same as always. White shutters, plastic flamingos in the yard, the smell of overboiled coffee seeping through the screen door. Ashley's red Mazda, a graduation gift from Mom even though she never finished her degree, sat in the driveway. My mother opened the door with a surprised look, wearing a bathrobe and clutching a mug. Ashley was behind her in one of those matching pajama sets influencers wear in TikToks. I stood there in my coffee-stained work hoodie and thrifted jeans, holding the envelope with the winning ticket like it was a sacred scroll. "I won," I said, my voice shaking. "The lottery. I really won." Ashley's eyes widened and my mother set her mug down slowly. For a few seconds there was stunned silence, pure, untouched awe. Then Mom smiled. Not the soft, warm smile you'd expect. No, it was a calculating one. Like she'd just found a solution to a problem she hadn't yet mentioned. "Well, I suppose this means you'll be helping the family now," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I hesitated. I still remember the feeling, like the air got sucked out of the room. I hadn't said anything about giving them money. I hadn't even received the check yet. But to my mother it was never mine in the first place. It was ours. "I haven't decided what I'm doing with it yet," I said carefully. "But I wanted you to know." Ashley perked up on the couch. "You're going to split it, right? I mean, I've been looking at apartments in downtown and this could really help." That's when I knew. They had already spent my money in their heads. My mom nodded like Ashley had said something wise. "Tessa, you're not going to hoard it all. That's not what family does." I blinked. Family didn't pay my rent when I was working 3 jobs. Family didn't come when I had my wisdom teeth pulled and couldn't drive. Family laughed when I got promoted to head server. Mom's eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic. You've always been difficult. You never understood what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. Ashley has struggled too. Ashley rolled her eyes. God, stop making this a competition. I just thought you'd be happy to share. Like, you're not rich enough on your own now. I felt my throat tighten. It's not about the money. It's about the principle. You didn't ask, you assumed. That was the last straw for them. I saw it in my mom's face. She went quiet, ice forming behind her eyes. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. You've become greedy, Tessa, she said quietly. And selfish. Just like your father's side. I left that day with my heart hammering in my chest, the envelope still tucked safely into my purse. I didn't care that they were mad, I just didn't want to believe they could be so cold. But deep down I think I always knew they could. I just didn't want it to be true. A week later, after the lottery office verified my claim and mailed the check to me by registered courier, I made the mistake of picking up when Mom called. I want to talk, she said sweetly. Come by. Just for tea. I hesitated. But something in me still hoped she might say sorry. That she might acknowledge I deserved this win. So I went. She greeted me with a warm hug. Ashley wasn't there and for once the house was quiet. She made peppermint tea and asked about my plans. I told her I hadn't figured it all out yet, but I was thinking about moving and maybe starting a business one day. She nodded, smiling. When the tea was ready, I reached into my bag and took out the check. I hadn't deposited it yet. I'd wanted to show her proof that this was real. That something good had finally happened to me. She stared at it, said nothing, and then got up to tend to something on the stove. I turned away for half a second to grab my mug. It only took a moment. The rustle. The hiss. The sharp sting of burning paper. I spun around. She was standing in front of the fireplace, arm extended. The check was curling, blackening at the edges as flames swallowed it. I screamed. She didn't flinch. If you won't help this family, she said, you don't deserve that money. It was gone before I could reach her. Gone. Just like that. And in that instant I realized I hadn't lost the money, not really. I'd lost everything else. And that was about to become her problem. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my apartment floor with my arms wrapped around my knees, eyes burning from crying, heart pounding so violently I could feel it in my teeth. My fingers twitched with the need to grab something, anything, and smash it against the wall. The silence in the room roared. My mother had set fire to my future and I couldn't even scream loud enough to undo it. The image of the check, those neat printed numbers burning to ash, looped in my head like a cruel movie reel. $2,500,000, gone in the span of seconds because I had finally said no. Because I had dared to draw a boundary. I kept replaying it all, questioning myself. Why did I bring it there? Why did I trust her? What was I trying to prove? My loyalty? My worth? Had I still been chasing that impossible good daughter status that was never going to be handed to me? At some point around 4 a.m., I grabbed my phone and called the Texas Lottery Commission. A voice message. They opened at 9 a.m. I didn't hang up, I just lay there, phone on my chest, until the sun rose and the sound of early buses and garbage trucks rattled through my street. At 9:02 a.m. I called again. A woman named Kelly answered, polite and chipper. I choked on the words as I explained what had happened. She paused when I got to the part about the check being burned. Do you still have the claim number and confirmation email? Yes. Yes, I do. Hey. I'm really sorry that happened, she said, her voice shifting from customer service cheer to something more serious. Since the check hasn't been cashed and wasn't deposited, it can be canceled. You'll need to come into our Austin office in person, bring ID, and we'll reissue it. The original check becomes void the moment we process the cancellation. Relief broke through me so sharply it made me cry again. Ugly, open-mouthed sobs I didn't try to muffle. I thanked her over and over. She probably thought I was unstable, but I didn't care. I was one signature away from getting it back. And my mother had no idea. When I finally stood and looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. My hair was tangled, cheeks stained with tears, and eyes. My God, my eyes looked like they belonged to someone who had just crawled out of war. But beneath all that grief, something else had begun to stir. Not just anger. Clarity. She didn't burn that check because she needed the money. She did it because she couldn't control me with it. Because for the first time, I had something she couldn't guilt me into giving away. That fire had nothing to do with cash. It was about power. The power I was no longer handing over. I drove to Austin the next morning, hand clutching my documents like they were my last lifeline. The office was cold and sterile, but when the new check slid across the counter into my hands, I felt something inside me click back into place. The weight of fear loosened its grip, replaced by something harder, sharper. This time I didn't go back to Houston. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post about it. I drove straight to a small credit union I had researched the night before, one with discreet wealth management services, and deposited the check under a newly formed trust, not under my name. I opened a new P.O. box in Austin, set up a second phone line with a new number, and called a lawyer I found through a financial planning forum. When I returned to my apartment that night, everything had changed. And no one knew. 3 days later the text started. Well, Tessa, I know you're angry. Come home so we can talk. Ashley. Okay, maybe we all overreacted. But can you just send me like $20,000? I'll pay you back. Well, you're acting like a stranger. This family needs you. Don't abandon us. Then it turned darker. Well, I gave you everything. How dare you walk away now? That money was never just yours. Ashley, you're disgusting. Ungrateful. Enjoy your blood money. Blood money. That one made me laugh. Loud, full-bodied, the kind of laugh that comes out when something is so twisted it circles back to funny. I blocked them both. Then I called my lawyer. How soon can we talk about asset protection? I asked. Over the next few weeks, I disappeared in the ways that mattered. I kept going to work at the diner, at least for a while, because I didn't want to draw attention. But I was moving in silence, laying foundations. My attorney helped me form an LLC. I started looking at commercial properties on the edges of town, under aliases, wearing sunglasses, playing the role of a quiet investor. I was building something. Slowly. Carefully. While they still thought they had broken me. And then I got the call. A friend from high school, Jessica, sent me a screenshot. It was from a gossip Facebook group in our old neighborhood. Does anyone know why Deborah Morgan's house is being looked at by a real estate firm? I saw a guy take pictures and put something on the door. I stared at the image. There it was, my mother's white-shuttered house with a notice of default taped to the screen. I called my lawyer again. Can I buy a property in foreclosure if I already know the borrower? He hesitated. It's possible. But ethically. I'm not asking for ethics. I'm asking for legality. Then yes. If you go through a third-party trust, it's entirely legal. I bought my mother's house in 3 weeks. Paid in full. Quietly. No flags. No visits. I wanted her to feel it all at once. The same way I did standing in that living room as my check turned to smoke. Ashley, it turned out, was in deeper trouble than I thought. One of her former friends, Rachel, worked at a financial services company and owed me a favor after I helped her through a bad breakup last year. She maxed out 3 credit cards, Rachel whispered on the phone. 2 are in your mom's name. The third one is overdrawn and in collections. She's paying minimums using some buy now, pay later scheme, and her credit score is in the toilet. I smiled. Can I buy the debt? She paused. I'm not supposed to say yes. But technically, yes. Through the open market. I did. A shell company I created bought the debt. Then the calls started. Then the letters. Then the threats of legal action. Ashley called me 5 times in one night, her number popping up over and over again. I didn't answer. Instead, I played back one of her voicemails while sipping a glass of Merlot on my new balcony. You're ruining me. You've always been jealous, but this is psychotic. I hope you rot alone. I leaned back and watched the stars. Alone? Maybe. But free. Finally free. My mom called again 2 days after the foreclosure was finalized. She was sobbing, begging. The bank wouldn't help her. She didn't know what was happening. Her savings were gone. She and Ashley had nowhere to go. You did this, she said, broken. Didn't you? I didn't answer. I let her sit in the silence. Because she hadn't just burned a check that day. She burned her last chance to keep me. And now I wasn't just reclaiming my money. I was reclaiming myself. I hadn't meant to destroy them. At first all I wanted was peace. A moment to breathe without the stench of guilt shoved down my throat. A single morning when I didn't wake up with the weight of my family's failures tied to my ankles like bricks. But something shifted when I watched them unravel. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the years. The birthdays I spent alone. The way Mom looked at Ashley like the sun rose in her lap, while I stood in the dark corners holding candles that no one ever noticed. There was something deeply satisfying about watching it all burn. Not just my check this time, but the foundation they stood on. I didn't light the match. I just moved the gasoline a little closer. Ashley's debt collectors were relentless. He tried blocking the numbers. Changed her phone twice. Then came the letters. I made sure every envelope looked official. I wanted her to sweat. Wanted her to read every word and see her own name next to past due and legal action pending. I didn't need revenge that screamed. I preferred the kind that whispered, low and steady like a storm rolling in just out of sight. The day they moved out of the house I now owned, I watched from a black sedan parked half a block away. A moving truck pulled up and I saw my mother come outside in a stained sweatshirt, hair thrown up, eyes puffy. She looked smaller than I remembered. Ashley slammed the front door behind her, dragging 3 suitcases and shouting at someone on speakerphone. Her voice was high-pitched, frantic. I rolled my window up when she started crying. It was strange. I didn't feel triumphant. Not in the way I thought I would. I felt clean. Like rinsing years of rot from my skin. Like finally understanding that I didn't need their approval or apology. I just needed distance. Space. Justice. They moved into some rundown apartment complex on the south side, the kind with metal staircases and kids playing barefoot in the parking lot. I knew because I checked. A friend who worked in leasing pulled up the file. 1 bedroom. Month-to-month lease. No furniture listed on the inventory. 3 weeks later, Ashley applied for a payday loan. I bought the loan through a third party and called the number listed. Hi, this is Kara from Delta Recovery Services. We're reviewing your repayment plan. We noticed you missed your first installment. He sniffed. I know. I just need a little more time. My mom's not working right now and I just started doing Instacart. Well, I said, pausing just enough, that's not our problem. I hung up. And for the first time in my life I smiled the way my mother used to, tight, cold, without warmth. I kept tabs on them without speaking. I didn't need to. Their silence was loud enough. Friends I hadn't heard from in years suddenly popped up, curious, just checking in. My aunt from Ohio sent a message laced with concern but reeking of nosiness. Heard there's been some trouble back home. Everything okay? I said nothing. Let them write their own stories in the silence I left behind. And while they flailed, I built. The LLC I'd opened in Austin became a holding company. I hired a real estate agent and purchased 3 more distressed properties. 1 commercial, 2 residential. I hired a contractor. Paid crews in cash. No flash, no social media posts, no grand reveals. Just work. Silent, deliberate work. I didn't quit the diner right away. I liked the normalcy of it. The greasy smell of bacon and burnt toast. The old couple that came in every Wednesday for tuna melts. The sound of the ticket printer slicing through the kitchen noise. Grounded me. Reminded me who I'd been. Who I'd had to be. But even there the old habits crept back. One morning I caught Carla, the shift supervisor, telling a new hire that I wasn't really the friendly type. Something inside me stiffened. Maybe she meant nothing by it. Or maybe people like her never learned to see women like me unless we smiled first. That afternoon I walked out in the middle of my shift and never went back. I didn't leave a note. They didn't call. A few days later I drove to Houston for the first time since everything happened. Not to see them. That chapter was closed. But there was something I needed to see. The lot behind my old high school. It had been nothing but an abandoned strip mall for years. Graffiti, broken windows, the smell of piss and old tires. But I remembered walking past it every day wondering what it could be if someone cared enough to fix it. Now I had the means. And more importantly, I had the motivation. It wasn't just about real estate anymore. It was about legacy. About building something from the ashes my mother left behind. I bought the lot. Through a shell company, of course. I didn't want anyone knowing the name Tessa Morgan was behind it. When the sale went through, I stood in the cracked parking lot with a blueprint in my hand, imagining a community center. Maybe something for single mothers. A place with computers, after-school tutoring, hot meals. The kind of place I would have killed for growing up. A boy on a bike rolled past and asked if the building was getting torn down. I nodded. Cool, he said. It smells like pee. I laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks. That night my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Pause. Then her voice. I know you're behind it, Mom said. I didn't respond. Just held the phone to my ear and let her fill the silence. You bought the house. You took it. And now you're ruining Ashley's life. I could hear her breathing hard like she'd been crying or pacing or both. You think you're better than us now? You think money makes you right? I spoke quietly. Calmly. No. But it gave me a way out. Something you never wanted me to have. You're my daughter, she hissed. I raised you. You owe me. That word, oh, hit me like a slap. I stood in my living room surrounded by the soft hum of my air purifier, my fridge gently clicking, the scent of lavender from the candle I had lit. My space. My air. My peace. I whispered, I don't owe you anything. She hung up. I let the silence stay. A week later Ashley tried to sue me. The court papers arrived at my lawyer's office. She was suing for emotional damages, claiming I'd manipulated her financially and caused her irreparable psychological harm. The lawyer chuckled as he slid the folder across the table. She doesn't have a case. Not even close. File a counter, I said. For defamation. And file liens against any assets she still has. You sure? I nodded. Let's not give her the impression this is a game. The judge threw her case out in less than a month. But by then the message had landed. I wasn't the girl they used to kick around. I was someone they'd have to answer to now. But the final twist didn't come from a courtroom. It came from a knock. I opened the door and saw a woman in her 60s. White hair, cane, floral blouse. She smiled. Mrs. Pierce, she asked. I blinked. Yes. I used to know your father. Before he passed. I let her in. She sat carefully on the couch, looking around with kind eyes. I just wanted to say thank you. For what? She pulled a wrinkled envelope from her bag and handed it to me. Inside was a photo, me at maybe 6 years old, sitting on a swing with a paper crown on my head. My dad behind me smiling. Your father always said you were the one. That you'd be the one to break the pattern. I didn't know I was crying until the tears hit the photo. She patted my hand gently. He left a small life insurance policy before he died. Your mother never gave it to you. I stared at her. She forged your signature and cashed it herself. My breath caught. How much? Not millions, she said. But enough. 25,000. That was the moment it all settled in. The years of silence. The twisted narratives. The gaslighting. It had started long before the lottery. I was never just a daughter. I was a resource. A thing to be used. And finally I wasn't. I closed the door behind her and stood in the middle of my living room, holding the photo to my chest. And for the first time in my life I said it out loud. I don't need you anymore. And I meant it. I thought after everything, I would feel nothing for them. I was wrong. It happened on a Thursday. Late afternoon. I was on a Zoom call with the nonprofit architect about the youth center design. We were discussing sustainable building materials when my second phone, the one barely anyone had the number to, started buzzing. Blocked number. I declined it. Twice. Then a voicemail came through. I almost ignored it until I saw the preview. I'm in the hospital. Mom. My lungs froze. My fingers moved faster than my brain. I opened the message, played it. It was Ashley. Her voice was breathless. Kiki. They said she collapsed at the bus stop. She was on her way to a temp job. They think it was a stroke. Or a heart thing. I don't know. They're not telling me anything. He kept asking for you, Tessa. She keeps saying your name. I didn't move for a full minute after the message ended. The air around me warped. My mouth went dry. My mind warred with itself, rage and guilt wrestling in the pit of my stomach. He had burned my check. She had robbed me of my father's insurance. She had chosen Ashley over and over and over. And now, suddenly I was supposed to what? Come running? I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water and stared out the window. Then I grabbed my keys. When I walked into the place was buzzing. Metal carts, groaning patients, fluorescent lights that buzzed like flies. I found the nurse's station. My mother was brought in, I said steady. Deborah Morgan. The nurse looked up. Her eyes flickered when she heard the name. She's in ICU. Room 17B. Only immediate family can go in. I lifted my ID. I'm her daughter. The nurse nodded and buzzed the door. I stepped into a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and endings. Ashley was slumped on a bench, her hoodie pulled tight over her head, dark circles under her eyes. She looked up when she saw me, and for a second she didn't say anything. Then, she kept asking for you. I didn't speak. She pushed to her feet. She's not the same anymore, Tess. After everything. She's different. I brushed past her. The door to 17B creaked open and there she was. Deborah Morgan. My mother. Thinner than I remembered. Tubes in her arms. Face pale. Eyes half-lidded. She turned slightly when she heard me. Her lips parted. Tessa. Came out like a breath. Soft. Almost unsure. I didn't move. I wanted to ask why. Why now? Why me? Why, after everything she'd done, did she still think I would be the one to show up? But the answers wouldn't change anything. She tried to lift her hand. I didn't take it. Instead, I pulled a chair closer. Saturday. Folded my arms. You almost died, I said. A flicker in her eyes. Something like shame. Or maybe fear. I didn't mean for things to go this way, she whispered. I leaned forward, voice low. You set my check on fire. You stole my inheritance. You called me ungrateful for wanting to keep what I earned. What part of this wasn't meant to go that way? She closed her eyes. I was scared, she croaked. Scared you'd leave. That you'd forget about us. That you'd become like him. I blinked. Dad. She nodded slowly. He always had one foot out the door. Even when he smiled. Even when he held you. I sat in stunned silence. You don't know what it's like, she said. Raising 2 kids alone after he left. Watching your youngest screw up every opportunity. Watching your eldest drift further away with every good grade, every raise, every choice that didn't include you. I stood. My skin prickled with heat. You don't get to punish me for being better, I said. You don't get to clip my wings and then cry when I fly. Her chest rose weakly. I wanted to keep us whole. No, I said, eyes stinging. You wanted to keep me small. We sat in silence for a long time. Machines beeped. Nurses walked by. Somewhere down the hall someone was crying. Finally she spoke again. Are you happy? I stared at her, baffled. I'm free, I said. She nodded slowly, almost sadly. That's more than I ever was. I left without saying goodbye. Outside, Ashley was gone. Just an empty bench and a vending machine humming beside it. I went home and made tea. Pulled out the blueprint of the community center. Added another room to the design. A women's resource library. Small. Private. Books. Laptops. Counseling referrals. I didn't do it for her. I did it for the woman I might have become if I hadn't escaped. Weeks passed. The hospital bills piled up. I knew because a collector mistakenly sent a notice to her old address. My house. She'd listed it on a form, probably forgetting it was no longer hers. The debt totaled $47,000. I stared at the letter. I could pay it. Easily. Quietly. Or I could let the system she relied on swallow her whole, the same way she tried to let it swallow me. I folded the letter and slid it into the fireplace. She would survive. Or she wouldn't. Either way, I was done saving her. Ashley tried to call again. Voicemails, blocked numbers, desperate texts. I ignored them all until one message caught my eye. I'm pregnant. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I believed it, though maybe I did. But because of what came next. Don't do to this baby what you did to us. The rage that surged in me was so sudden I gasped. I'd paid her debts. Hid my pain. Fought for every inch of peace. And she still painted me the villain. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Finally, she breathed. I didn't know who else to turn to. I thought if you knew. I know, I interrupted. I know you're still a parasite. She was silent. You want money? Go get a job. You want help? Go to a shelter. You want to raise a baby? Then stop acting like one. Tessa. You burned your bridges. Don't act shocked that they don't lead to me anymore. I hung up. 3 months later, the community center opened. Kids played in the courtyard. Volunteers passed out hot meals. In one of the classrooms, a woman held a financial literacy seminar. I stood near the back watching. A girl about 14 approached me. Are you the owner? I smiled. Sort of. He looked around. This place is nice. My mom says it's for people who need a fresh start. It is. She hesitated. Did you ever need one? I looked out the window. Sunlight streamed in. The trees swayed gently. My skin tingled with something close to peace. Yes, I said. Once. A long time ago. She nodded and skipped away. That night I lit a candle. Not for them. But for me. For the girl who once stood in a burned-out living room watching $2.5 million turn to ash. For the woman who turned that ash into bricks and built a kingdom no one could tear down. I don't know if my mother ever forgave me. I don't know if Ashley kept the baby. I don't care. Because in the end I didn't just win. I healed. And that was worth more than any lottery check ever could be. If this story hit you deep, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in her shoes? Your voice matters here.